Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. In this episode, we're going to have Nick from Unbound Archery come on to kind of give us another deep dive in a different perspective on custom bowstrings and why we should probably start using them. Granted, a lot of the stuff that comes from the stock, or I guess comes stock with a lot of the bows that we get are pretty decent, but custom bowstrings, there's a lot more work put into them. And it honestly is just a better result. So we're going to cover all that, probably a lot more stuff. Before I do that, a little bit of an update for those who don't know. The third annual Southeastern Bow Hunter bow shoot up at Clybell WMA is coming soon. It is on July 13th, 9 a.m. We're going to have a bunch of giveaways. Right now, I've locked in giveaways from G5, from Moultrie. I'm working on a few others. I know Thor is bringing some cameras to give away. I know Ace is going to be a part of the giveaway. It's going to be a really good time. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer all of them. And all traditional bows, compound bows, and crossbows are accepted. We don't discriminate. So let's see what else. Still got the hunt in Tennessee with the Blue River Bow Hunting guys and a bunch of other folks called Hunt to Help. If you want to get involved with that, reach out to me. I've had a few buddies reach out and want to get involved. So it's going to be very exciting to be able to do my first out-of-state hunt, in our neighbor to the north. So that's going to be great. Let's see. Bucks are looking good. Got two of my target bucks from last year that are really starting to show out. So I think it's going to be a very, very good season this year as far as chasing the deer. I'm not going to say anything like I was last year where, I've got them dialed in or I've got this. That's not going to happen. I can't claim that because I said that last year and then look what happened with trike. So very hopeful that, it's in the Lord's plan that I get to put one of those deer down, and I'll keep you guys updated. The more I see, the more I'll tell you. Got a buck that's super, super wide. I've been jokingly calling him the Southern Rompola buck because he kind of does the same thing a Rompola buck does. He sort of shoots up a bit and then just widens out like crazy, wide and back. So we'll see what he turns into. Going to be a really exciting season. Looking forward to it. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode last week with Zach. Very informative on a way that I'm going to probably be mobile hunting and also use my new hang-on setup to really get in a little bit closer to the deer. I've got two ways that I want to sort of go about this season. Some of it on some properties is going to be farther shots, 30 to 40. Only reason is because there's not a lot of cover and, I can't really get right up on them like I want to. Plus I got spotted a lot last year in moving. So, maybe it was a tree. I don't really know. So I'm going to try that. Been practicing with my bow and getting very, very dialed in at least 40 yards. I'd really like to be dialed in at about 60 to 80, but I'm not going to be taking shots like that in Georgia. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all the updates for me. Still working on getting shirts and hats made. Once all of that happens, I will let you guys know. And then if you guys want some, you can reach out and we'll set it up. I'm probably going to go through like Shopify, I'm still trying to figure out a good time to make the website so I can put all that stuff on there. But things are happening. Southeast Bow Hunter is growing. So now getting to the reason why it's growing, the people we need to thank and let you guys know about is the partners. So I'm going to start off with Working Class Bow Hunter. I know of a very big episode that they are going to be doing next month. So be on the lookout for that. I can't talk about it, even though they've talked about it. I'm just not going to let the rabbit out of the bag or the cat out of the bag. But it's going to be a really good episode. Working Class is doing awesome things. Kurt's so freaking busy right now. I was trying to get him on for an episode and literally the schedules did not line up. So be on the lookout for a Kurt Geyer Working Class episode sometime later on this year. Once things kind of start mellowing out, this time of year is pretty busy for all of us. So thankful to be working with them. If you want to get some Working Class Bow Hunter merch, go to workingclassbowhunter.com, use the code listed down below and get your stuff. I know they have a new thing with, oh my God, I just saw it. I can't remember. Let me look it up real quick. They have a new collab with a big name company. I don't know why I can't think of what it. Oh, here we go. Black Ovis. I can't believe I forgot that. So yeah, they've got some new shirts from Black Ovis, or I guess a collaboration with Black Ovis that look really sick. Check those out. Get you some hats, koozies, stickers, whatever you want. Use that code below to save you some money. Next up is going to be Osseo gear. So Joe, at the time of recording this, has, what's the date? Today's date is the 4th. He's got 2 more days in Africa. So we are currently setting up his episode. We are going to do a very in-depth episode. I don't know how long it's going to be, but we're going to do everything whitetail. Speaking of whitetails, check out his podcast, Mission Whitetail. It's going to be very hard to get everything he talks about in that podcast into one episode, but maybe we'll do multiple. Who knows? But Joe is the owner of Osseo Gear. Osseo Gear is my brand of choice to work with when it comes down to camo. God, I wish I could talk about what's coming. They've dropped little hints and stuff there, but yeah, I'm not at liberty to speak on it yet. But there is some big stuff coming from Osseo this summer, so be on the lookout for that. If you want to get some Osseo gear, if you want to hold out till some of the new stuff drops, use the code down below. Excuse me, save you 15%. A lot of our stuff is 15%. That's kind of what we feel like is fair. It helps out a lot. So definitely go check them out. Next up is going to be Summit Tree Stands. Some changes have happened there, but I'm very, very thankful to still be working with them. I'm excited to get my sticks out. I'm excited to get my stand out. Got some small tweaks that I need to make, but other than that, flawless equipment. So head over to summitstands.com to check out all the options they have for climbers and hang-ons. They've got all the accessories you need. And of course, use the code in the description down below to save some money. Next up is going to be the Bowtique. So me and Mike have been talking a lot, man. Dude, he's got literally the best arrow wraps on the market, bar none. The designs that he can do, the customer service, the quality, all of it is there. So head over to the boutiquellc.com. Check out all the new stuff he's got. He's constantly dropping new designs. He does custom orders. So if you're like me and you've got like a podcast or a brand or something you want to make that's solely just yours, you can send him a custom arrow wrap request. Sorry, man, I'm so tired, y'all. But you can send him a custom arrow wrap request, and he'll get that ball rolling for you. And use the code down below to get free shipping. Next up is Bergie Bowsmith. Bergie has been putting out a lot of bow review stuff lately for the new Truth archery bows, which has been interesting. It's cool to see competitors and stuff that they're coming out with new things and they're innovating. And I like to see innovation in the archery space. Because of the bows that I choose to shoot and the company I choose to work with in that space. They're extremely innovative, which you'll hear about them in just a second. If you don't know, obviously a lot of y'all probably do, and you can see it behind me if you're watching the video. But Bergie's a good dude, man. He knows how to work on some bows, and he is a dealer for a lot of the brands that we all use. So head over to Bergie Bowsmith. If you want to get your bow tuned by him, send him a request for that, and use the code down below to save 10%. And also, if you want to get some of the equipment that we all use, make sure to use Bergie as your guy, and you can also save 10% with the code listed down below. Next up, G5 Outdoors, one of our beautiful, beautiful partners that is giving is part of the giveaway. Very thankful for that. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm so excited, especially now. Deer season for us is, let's see, June 4th. 3 months and a week and a half away. So 10, 11 weeks away. I'm so excited. Y'all don't understand how much I really love the G5 Mega Meat and really everything G5's made. They have been around for a very long time. They always make an extremely good product. And, I'm super stoked to see what the Mega Meat's going to do on some of these deer this year. If you're not a mechanical guy, if that, and that means you don't want to run the Mega Meat, you don't want to run the Dead Meat V2, you don't want to run the T2, they also have fixed blades. So you can get the Montec M3, and you can also get the Striker V2 and the Striker X. Those last two are replaceable blade options. If that's something you're into, the other two you can just sharpen yourself and you don't even have to worry about it. So head over to G5 Outdoors and check out everything they've got. Next up is going to be Prime Archery. Prime Archery is, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, okay? I've shot all the flagship bows, and the Prime Form was the best, in my opinion. It literally is the most stable. It's the most comfortable to draw back. The speeds are still up there with what I want, and the options they have are amazing. I have mine in the back there. You can't really tell, but it's got the Recon Gray riser, and then it's got the Osseo gear limbs, because Osseo till the day I die. But yeah, man, I'm so thankful to be working with Prime. Brian and the guys over there are just awesome dudes, good Christian men. Call them up anytime I need to, and man, it's it's a blessing. It truly is. So yeah, head over to Prime Archery if you want to check out some of the new bows. There is something I really should have ran this by Brian before I started this intro, but be on the lookout. Just go to their Instagram. By the time this drops, it may already have dropped, and I may have missed the mark, but it is what it is. Yeah, there's something coming. So be on the lookout for that. I know if you're at TAC this weekend up in Michigan, which I guess technically it'd be this past weekend, you guys would probably already have seen it. I'm going to hopefully see it here in the next couple of days. I'm actually going to text Brian and see if he'll give me a little sneak peek. I've been asking for months. I've known about this for months. So we'll see. But head over to Prime Archery. Check out the new form. Check out the RVX Plus 32 and 34. And all the other stuff that they have to offer, man. They are innovating in a way that a lot of other people aren't. So very thankful for them. Next up is going to be dialed archery. Got my dialed arc stuff. My dialed proof is working flawlessly. Super simple site to use, but also like the best quality that I've seen. They're always working on new designs, new colorways, new small batches and stuff like that. So head over to Dialed Archery and pick up your new site, man. Seriously, help support those guys. Next up is going to be Ace Hardware and Social Circle. Like I mentioned, they are I'm sorry, having a brain fart. They're part of the giveaway. And I want to sort of emphasize on that because they're a small shop in Social Circle, Georgia. But they do amazing work. They have all the brands that we need. And, I'm very thankful that they're getting involved in this. Also shout out to DNR because DNR is getting involved in the shoot as well. So around here, it's a really tight knit community and I love that. So head over to Ace if you want to get your bow worked on or go get a new bow or, they do carry Prime. And you can also get some broadheads, arrows, all that stuff. Let's see. Next up is going to be Moultrie. So I know of a lot of things that is coming from Moultrie here soon. And I talked with Mark recently and I was like, what can I talk about? And he's like, man, here's what we got. Here's what we can say. Here's what we can't say. So I have to put some stuff on the back burner right now. But if you are interested in getting a very high quality feeder, head over to Moultrie. They've got a new feeder that's out. I also have the Edge Pro 2, which is the cameras that I'm running. Absolutely flawless. Made the switch not too long ago, and I'm so thankful for it. The solar panels work. Everything comes in some really cool boxes. It's just great quality stuff with great quality people. So head over to MoultrieMobile.com and check out everything they have to offer and keep your eyes peeled because there are some new things coming. Next up is Bow Hunting League. If you haven't signed up, get a team together and sign up, man. Bow Hunting League, I am going to be a state sponsor for that this year. Still haven't fully submitted any of the forms or anything, but it is happening. And so you will see like a banner behind me a little bit later on this year. That is something that we are getting. If you guys, anyone listening has a brand or a company or some type of social media following and you want to get involved in being state sponsor, you can do that too. Reach out to me. I'll send you the link. The Bow Hunting League, I have got Kyle coming on in a couple of weeks and we're going to talk all about it. So if you don't know what it is, just head over to bowhuntingleague.com, look at the deer contest and get involved. Okay. There's tons of giveaways, tons of great people that are in the league. It's very blessed to have those guys. Next up is going to be Victory Archery. So if you've noticed on the podcast, I've kind of changed things a little bit. I used to put a Victory ad in the middle of the podcast, but it was very outdated. And, I felt like they deserve better than that. So from now on, they are going to be in the intro every single week. And then you get a full episode without any interruptions. But if you're looking at changing your arrows up this year, Victory is 100% the way to go. Victory makes, in my opinion, the best arrows on the market. You got the Rip TKO, which is what I'm using. They've got the new HLR, which is basically the Rip TKO, but upgraded. New insert system. They've got the VAP SS, which is a stainless steel wrap inside of the carbon wrap or the carbon tubing, which makes it stronger, but it also isn't adding a lot of weight. You can get micro diameter to 5 millimeter, which is what I'm running. And then you can also get your standard size, which is usually ran in the V-Force model series. But I personally am a huge fan of the Rip TKO. Now, I haven't shot these new HLRs. I'm going to get some eventually. But the Rip TKOs have done great for me. So if you're looking at an arrow that is going to do the job, that is strong enough to get the job done, that is always accurate, go with the Rip TKO. But really anything Victory makes is good quality. I've been shooting Victory for years. Okay. And that's the only arrow that I trust. I've shot other ones, just testing them out. And let's just say they don't hold a candle to it. So head over to victoryarchery.com and check out what you want. You can get some Victory arrows from Berge. You can also get some Victories over at Ace. And then if you want to head over to, I know this is kind of a shameless plug, but Lancaster's got them. But go to your local bow shop. You know, if you're someone who lives in like Florida or something, go to your local bow shop. I guarantee you they are going to have them. Next up is going to be Boning Archery. So Boning is a partner that I'm very thankful to be working with. They just came out with the new Alpha and Atlas vanes, and they have every single color that you can think of. Man, this is a really long intro. I'm going to try to wrap it up soon, guys. I'm sorry. But Boning is a staple in the archery industry. They've got the Atlas and Alpha new vanes that came out that even with heavy helical, I'm not seeing any type of parachuting. Extremely accurate, extremely quiet, super easy. It's literally lick and stick. Like you don't have to do hardly any arrow prep. Make sure it's clean, but you just put on their adhesive, Boning's adhesive, and really any adhesive. But you know, I think Boning's is the best. But you use any adhesive, and that vane is going to stay on that arrow. So head over to Boning archery.com and check out what they've got. Use the code down below to save you 20%. That's a very generous deal that they give us. So head over there, check out all the vanes they have, and pick out which one you want. Let's see. Next up is the Chase. That is my buddy Brock's YouTube channel. He had a rough turkey season, so that sucks, but he's got some potential for a very good deer season. So make sure to follow along with him. Subscribe, like, all that stuff. Share. Next up is, and actually last but not least, is going to be Odyssey. So the Odyssey app should be dropping soon. I need to text Dakota and see what's up with that. But yeah, man, Odyssey is going to change the game in the social media game. I'm very excited to see what they have. And yeah, so keep up with all of that. Check out all those partners. They're what help this podcast go around. And now it's the preacher moment. So as you guys know, I've always got to push the word in this podcast. I feel like this is the platform the Lord gave me to bring more people to Christ. At least that's my intention. If I'm pushing you off with it, I'm sorry. You can skip this part. Please don't, but you can if you absolutely feel the need to. But Jesus Christ, man, he's the Alpha, the Omega, the most amazing thing that is in this world. You know, look, I'm going to be real with you guys. All right. So we've been having some stuff go on with the family that has really put my faith to the test. Some stuff that's hard for me to go through, hard for me to deal with. I've low-key have been losing a little bit of sleep over it. And for some, it would make sense. For some, it wouldn't. But I was talking with Jessica last night, and she completely basically clotheslined me in my faith. And it was one of the most important things I think she's ever said to me. But on here, I'll always say, if you're going through anything tough, you know, give it to God, give it to Jesus. He'll get you through it. And that's true. But that's the surface level of it. So I was over here, you know, stressing about what we're going through. And she was like, hey, you know what you always tell me? Give it to God. And she's like, give it to him. And I was like, you're right. You're 100% right. But it's harder. Like that was the realization I had, is sometimes it's harder to do that. You can sit there and say it all you want. Oh, it's God's plan. It's up to God. And that's fine. But you have to believe it, and you have to actually do it. You can't just have, you know, you can't just claim your faith and then not live it. Right. But we're guilty of that. All of us are guilty of that every single day. In some sense, some of us do it to an extreme, and some of us barely do that. And then there's the people in the middle, right? And, you know, I just wanted to be open and honest with you guys that, like, I really got thrown on my butt. Like, she shocked me with that, because she was right. You know, I was stressing about it, worrying about what I could do, but I wasn't even thinking about what the Lord's going to do. And knowing that whatever he's got in store is going to be so much better than anything I could ever do. Right. So that was very, very humbling. And it's just kind of a real life situation that I want to tell you guys about. That, you know, I might sit here and talk to you about Jesus all the time, but I am far from perfect. I'm far from the perfect follower. Everyone's got bad days, and all of us fall short of the glory of God. But with Jesus, we have eternal life. John 3:16, you know, God gave his only begotten son so that he wouldn't come into the world to condemn it, but that he would save it. So, and that was a little bit of paraphrasing there, but still, you guys get my point. Go look that verse up. Makes perfect sense. All right. So that is the preacher moment. That's partners. That's the updates. I'm sure Nick is probably waiting on us. So yeah, let's get into it. Nick from Unbound Archery. You read the title. You've seen the title card. You know who is on the podcast. But we got Mr. Nick Dawa, however you say it. We were just joking about this too, and I even said I'm going to do my best not to mess it up. And what do? Dawa.
It's actually still a lot better than most people.
How do people usually say it?
Like Dawa. I've heard
Dawa.
Dawa. I could see it. I could see how people.
I can too. Hey, look, it's better than that. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, you want me to try? Do you want me to try?
Go for it. Go for it.
Let's see it. Let's see it again real quick.
I don't know if it's it's not backwards, is it?
No.
Okay.
Chakowski.
Close. Chakowski.
Chakowski,
dude. So like I've said this on the podcast before, and people are gonna listen like, why are you talking about last names right now? But whatever. For 20, let's see, I'm 30, so 28 years, I thought it was Chakowski. And I've been telling everybody that. I've been saying that. Went through high school and college and work applications, all of that. Turns out that's not how you say it. It's actually Chakhovsky. And so I'm like, my dad passed away 4 years ago. And so ever since I found out, I'm like, I wish I could just call him and be like, you couldn't tell me when I was younger, like I'm lying to people my entire life. So yeah, be happy that it's not like that. Cause my wife,
that's so funny, dude.
Dude. My wife for years was like, because her last name was Lustenberger, right? So it wasn't any better. And she was like, I always wanted to marry someone with a short last name, just like Johnson or Smith. And she's like, and I found you. And I was like, hey, take it up with him, not me.
So funny, man. I guess, yeah, the story, like with our last name, my grandpa came from the Philippines, and I guess it was spelled Daoa, and people like had a real difficult time pronouncing it. So I guess he changed it to Dawa to get the pronunciation better here.
It's weird how that happens, right?
Right.
Like you can just change it. I mean, I did some and people are going to skip this part, I know it, but I was doing some, I guess, family history researching yesterday just because I was bored. And I found out that one of my ancestors back in like the I think it was 1800s, maybe even earlier than that, went from Poland to Italy. His name was Michael Chakowski. And he was a Catholic priest that left the church, became a Seventh-day Adventist, then kind of left that. From what I read, completely screwed over people that were at the Seventh-day Adventist church, and then died from some sort of sickness or something. And I'm like, apparently he was like the first Seventh-day Adventist missionary in Europe. And I'm like, okay, if that's the best my family's got, I'll take it. I mean, I'm a Christian. I push the word every episode, but it's like, man, I don't like the fact that he kind of, went behind people's backs and stuff. So,
right.
Yeah, it's family history is weird, man. And the thing is, like, when I did that, it showed me the different ways that you can spell the last name and say it. And it's all the same thing, but there's one that the letters aren't even remotely the same. There's one that's like Toby. Yeah. And I'm like, how do you even get Chakowski out of that? Yeah. So Polish people are great people, but
yeah,
they I don't know. But anyway, all right, on to hunting stuff. So let the people know who you are. Obviously you are with Unbound Archery, owner, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Which for those who don't know is a custom string company. And I wanted to get you on here to sort of really do a deep dive in like what the custom string game is. I said it in the intro that a lot of, stock strings and stuff are good. They'll get the job done, but they're not exactly up to par like y'all stuff is. It's different material, different what would you call it, braiding or twisting and all of that. So if we can, I would love to do a deep dive into Unbound, into what makes a custom string better and the different options that we have. But before we do, who are you, man, for the people who don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. For the people that don't know, Nicholas Dawa. And, I tell people the story. It's kind of funny. I didn't really get into archery and hunting until, my adult life, early 20s. And just watching bow hunting on TV, is kind of what got me interested. So I did that. I hunted for a few years, and I just learned I made a lot of mistakes the first few years, which I think is how most people end up learning. But just trickled from there. Like my passion for it grew, and then I got real curious on like the nuts and bolts of like tuning my own stuff. And I lived down in Southwest Kansas where there wasn't a whole lot of like bow shops and stuff like that. A lot of small shops are closing. So just like a lot of people that get started, I started on the arrows, and then I started working on my own equipment, and I got a bow press. And then the next thing you know, I did a small pivot, and I got into like traditional archery, and I was making my own wooden bows.
Oh
And
wow.
I started building bows from scratch, getting the staves, splitting them, making a longbow. And the thing with that I tell people is it would take, for me starting out, it could take me 20, 25 hours. And if the bow would tiller good, and it would shoot good and it wouldn't break, well then, like I was new to it. So it's like, what do you price a bow that you spent 20, 25 hours working on? And, like you don't really have a name
Yeah.
for the company or anything. And it was a lot of work. And my favorite part about the process of building those self bows was actually building like the Flemish twist string by hand. So I was like, I started having some of my friends with trad bows that didn't shoot the bows I was building, but just, they had their own trad bows, and they're like, hey, will you build me a string? So before you knew it, like I was kind of transitioning into like the Flemish twist stuff. And then that kind of turned into the compound side. It's like I'm really starting to sell strings, and then I've had guys with compound bows ask, and then so that's how we got started out in the string building side.
That's crazy. So I'm glad you brought that up because that makes me think of a question that I never would have even thought of. I got gifted a 75-year-old, like just legitimately traditional bow, but there's no string on it. And it was my family friend's dad's because he was a big bow hunter. And I told the guy that gave it to me, I was like, well, look, it's obviously in good condition. We put oil on it. It's all nice and shiny. I should have brought it down here, but it would just look like a stick or like one of those really old airplane propellers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's still upstairs, but I told him I was going to put a string on it and see if I can, because I've shot traditional archery one time, and 10 yards, I hit about 3 foot high.
It's
So
extremely humbling.
it is because I can shoot 100 yards, with I feel like almost any bow that's set to my draw length. And granted, that sounds a little cocky, but I practiced enough that I'm capable of doing it. It might take a couple tries, but it's gonna happen. With the trad bow, it's like, dude, I couldn't even draw the thing all the way back. And this was a buddy of mine's bow that was only 35-pound draw. And I was like, yo, maybe it's because I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. But what is the difference between like a traditional string and a compound string? I know there's a huge difference, but
Yeah, there's big differences. The materials you use, you need to have, materials that have a little more stretch to them. You want that with the trad stuff. So those limbs, especially the wooden bows, they can't take as much, strain and shock and vibration, like carbon limbs.
mhm,
But of course, on like a longbow or recurve, those trad bows, there's only one single long string. And the Flemish twist, those ones that you see, kind of the ones that are twisted by hand and you don't serve the end loops on them. That's, like I said, that's how I started off, but that's what you would use typically on, especially the older style wooden bows. And
mhm,
then you can make an endless loop string out of modern materials if the bow's like quote unquote fast flight compatible and can handle materials that have like vectoring and stuff in them. They can absorb a little more shock, those
mhm.
modern carbon limbs. So yeah, and it's a super easy thing to build. It's super quick, especially an endless loop string. I mean, you can literally have that built in 5 to 10 minutes. And then on the Flemish twist, it's a little tricky. I actually completely got out of the Flemish twist a couple years ago. I've every once in a while build one here and there. Uh, it's kind of relaxing to build. It's just it's a little jig that has, I don't know if you've ever seen one or seen like YouTube videos of people making strings or anything, but you can use nails, or it has like separate posts, and then you just have it to length and kind of weave it in and out, and it looks really cool. They're a really beautiful string, especially for those older bows.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. I see. I don't really know. I still, when I think of like what it takes to build a bowstring, it still kind of blows my mind a bit because I'll look at it and I'm like, huh, okay, so it's just a bunch of strands put together and they twist it and then that's it. But it's like, I feel like there's more that goes into that, like way more because even
Hmm.
material. Um, so I guess like with trad stuff, is it, you're basically saying you can't have like, if I took, I don't know, some type of material and had it where it's long enough and put two loops on the end, that I wouldn't be able to just set it on there. Like it probably wouldn't work right, right?
Uh, it depends on the material. I mean, of course, the material needs to be to length. There's people that build like cordage. They'll build stuff out of like yucca plants and just any kind of plant material. It's
Wow.
pretty cool, man. There's some YouTube videos with guys making bowstrings for their trad bows and self bows stuff they built, and they're building cordage out of it, building bowstrings out of it. It just
Huh.
needs to be strong enough. The diameter needs to be enough to knock an arrow on it, and it's got to have a little stretch, a little give, a little forgiveness for the limbs and stuff.
So isn't it true that like the natives and stuff used to use like deer sinew and stuff?
Yep. Yeah,
That's
100%. They
crazy,
use it
man.
on the like backing a bow to like strengthen the limbs.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's quite a rabbit hole. It's very intriguing.
that's wild. I see. I've never really been interested in the trad stuff, because like as far as hunting goes, um, to me, does it make it does it make it more fair, I guess, for the animal? It's an argument people always talk about, like with crossbows and bows and guns and bows and trad and all that stuff. Um, but like I feel like we owe it to them to be as deadly as possible with our archery equipment. Especially since, I shot 3 deer last year and only recovered one. And that's with a new, like brand new bow that, is supposed to have a lot of really, it's just, it happens. But I feel like the traditional side of things, while it's fun, and I do understand the making it more of a level playing field, I don't really want to have to be 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 yards away from them to be able to hit them.
Right.
Like if I need to poke them out at 40 or 50, I want to be able to do that.
Right.
And so I did kind of not intentionally, you know, stay out of the whole traditional side. But now that I've got this bow, I'm like, well, dude, I'm not. It's a 75-year-old bow. It's got
Hmm.
history behind it. I'd like to kill something with it. If I
Right.
can actually get it restrung, I'd like to be able to shoot something in a couple of years after practicing and see what I could do with it. So
Mhm.
it it definitely changed my mind on it. I'll still shoot prime till they don't want me to anymore. I love it. I mean, compound bows to me are some of the most interesting things. Like I know Bergie's been posting videos of the new Truth Archery bows, and those are very
Yeah, those are pretty slick,
interesting.
man.
I have you shot one yet?
I haven't, but Kevin Strothers, he's the engineer behind those bows, and I don't know if you know much about him, but he's a wizard, man, and he's helped like a lot of the several bow companies, Expedition, and I mean he helped Bowtech kind of get on
Yeah,
their feet.
he was with
And
Obsession for
then
a long time.
Obsession, yeah, he helped with the Obsession bows, and a lot of these designs he's made are just phenomenal. So I'm not surprised, Kevin kind of behind the wheel building these bows that they would be really good shooting bows.
Yeah, I think the thing that gets me, and I know we're going to touch on this later, but the thing that gets me very intrigued in it, and not saying that they're better than Prime or anything, any of these other bows that are out there, but the one thing that I've had a gripe about is a lot of companies for the past few years have been sort of smudging their speed numbers. Like I can tell you right now, I know that the Prime is dead on, but my Bear ain't no way, right? And I'm not trying to talk crap, but it's like there is no way. And
Right.
you know, he came out with these bows, and then I saw Bergie post some videos on it, and Bergie's going to shoot it straight, right? Like Bergie's not going to fluff anything, and I think the speed rating was like 347 or 346.2 or something, and Bergie outright said, "I tested this under the proper conditions, and that's exactly what I got was 346." And I'm just like, well, that's going to make a lot of companies change some stuff up
Yeah.
now because if you've got a bow that says, "Oh, we shoot 348," and you have a 30-inch draw length and you're shooting 70 pounds and you shoot a 350 grain arrow and you see that, that, chrono and it's like 325, I mean, that's 23 foot a second. Like, where did you get the 348 from? You know?
Yep.
So I see it changing a lot. And let me ask you this: is the string, is the quality of the string a big part of that, as far as like people getting more speed out of their bows?
Man, it makes yes and no. You can definitely pick up speed in a string, especially, if the diameters are right and it's out of the right materials and the speed knocks are doing what they're supposed to do, you can pick up, a certain percentage. It's not anything exponential,
Mhm.
like Gas launched their new series. I think what do they call that? System X.
Yeah.
And they've done testing with their materials and their speed knocks, and they're saying average 5, which a lot of people might not think is much, and maybe some people it is a lot, but that could be pretty average in a new bowstring. A lot of it's just the design of the bow, the cam. You have one of these older bows, it really doesn't matter how you build the string. There's only, so much you can get out of it, and bows are so efficient anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does
Well,
definitely can make a difference. It can help, it can only do so much, but it can definitely help.
yeah. Well, and that's why I wanted to ask, because I know Prime has. I'm actually supposed to be getting some of the speed mods that they've come out with,
Hmm.
and I'm just curious, like on. I mean, Brian told me that you get about 7 to 8 foot a second out of that, which, you know, like you said, cam design is a huge thing. And then I start seeing stuff like, I guess one thing I've noticed is when people get new strings, their speeds seem to be higher, which makes sense because the bow's got to settle. But isn't it true that you guys pre-stretch everything so you don't have any drop off? I mean,
Yeah, and it's kind of a funny deal, and every builder does things so completely different. And I'll tell
yeah,
you this might be a rabbit hole here of information,
that's fine.
but on one end of the spectrum, and it's funny because you can tell when there's like a new string builder bragging about like how long they stretch their strings, because it takes like a seasoned builder to know that string material, especially like Vectrin string material, doesn't require like a whole lot of stretching. So now we use what's called a cycle bot, and it's from Bloodline. It's commercially available, and and instead of, a lot of people will just on a static manual stretcher, put it at 400 pounds or so and just hold it, who knows, several hours, who knows how long they do it. But ours sits there and it cycles it. It kind of like load shocks it, so like it sits there and it brings it up to pressure, it holds it, and then it dumps it. So it lets the string kind of like stretch and settle, and it just sits there and it shocks it. So a lot of people can compare that to like shooting your string. And we, specific to us, we do a certain number of cycles at like a specific amount of time under a certain amount of weight, and everybody's going to do something completely different. And
Yeah.
some people spend tens of thousands or more, like with custom equipment that do certain things, and they'll pitch you. And from the consumer standpoint, you're thinking about the process, and you're like, oh, how do you stretch your strings? What do you do? And it sounds great, like they're serving it up on like a silver platter, a golden platter to
Mhm.
you, like it sounds great. But really, like, the process shouldn't matter. Like, if somebody sat here and told you, like, spend 30 minutes saying like, I've got $10,000 equipment, stretches the strings for 30 hours, like it does all this, that, and the other, and I sit here and I'm like, I don't stretch my strings at all, and then you get your string in the mail, like, you want the result of the string. Like, if knowing what I know now, like if I was a consumer of the string and someone was trying to sell me, I'm like, no, like, I don't want to know what the process is. I want the result of the process.
Yeah.
So I tell people, there's like three fundamentals of like a good string. You don't want the peep to rotate.
Hmm.
You don't want the serving to come undone, and you
Hmm.
don't want the string to like stretch over time and you lose your tune, you lose your poundage. Other than that, I don't give a crap how you build the string. Like, it should not, like, none of that should matter, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've probably heard of, I know a lot of people have, like, the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule.
Mm-mm.
Like, this is actually really interesting, and this applies to pretty much everything in life, but there's a rule. It's called the 80-20 rule, or it's called the Pareto principle. And just some very basic examples of it is like 20% of the fish, or 80% of the fish live in only 20% of the water, right? 80% of the population of the US live in only 20% of the cities. And then you go outside of that. If you think about your shirts in your closet, okay, you probably wear only 20% of your shirts 80% of the time. And this goes into basically every aspect of your entire life if you actually really get to, and it's not exactly 80-20. Sometimes it's, it goes even further and it's 90-10.
Yeah.
But you when you really understand that rule and you apply it and you can see how it works, through your life or even in string building, I know that 80% of the results of a good strings really only comes from 20% of like my process, that I have down.
Yeah.
All the rest of that crap, pretty much doesn't matter.
That's crazy. You're going to make me contemplate life tonight. I was not expecting that. Yeah, but it is true. I mean, when you were saying that, I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, 80% of my time is spent either working or family stuff or being lazy and just relaxing because I hardly ever get that. And then 20% of it would probably be done, with deer stuff or shooting the bow or doing the podcast or sharing things, So that, I mean, it's true. That's 100%
think
true.
about it and see where you can apply it in your life. Another example of that too is like, just for anybody listening, becoming a better archer, right? Like everyone tells you, like your stance, your form, your grip, your follow through, like all that stuff. Sure, all that is important, but only really 20% of that is going to make you, figure out what that 20% is. And I'll challenge you, anytime you have a big project in life, try to figure out what 20% means the most, and it's going to account for 80% of your results, and focus more on that stuff.
Man, getting life advice. I love it. That's awesome. No, I agree though. I mean, and especially speaking of like new archers, that are getting into it. I can tell you right now, when I first got my first bow 5-6 years ago, dude, I didn't know what I was getting into. I shot it every single day for an hour at least, right? And started at 20, didn't know crap about arrows. So I'm buying 31-inch arrows from Walmart that are just not built correctly at all. And then I'm like, well, why are they hitting lower? Why are they doing this? And you kind of just figure it out yourself, but back then 80% of my time was archery, and I got to see the result of it, and the results were, now I can hit 100 yards. It might take a couple shots, but it's not out of the realm of question. So definitely doing that. I mean, man, you got my brain going in circles now, dude. I'm
yeah,
like,
it's quite a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm over here like, what's that one philosopher, Plato, just running through everything. Like, man, where's my 80% going there?
You're gonna think about that one a lot now.
I'm not gonna sleep tonight, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, but just to add on to that a little, but all that to say, too, like from people that don't know string building, like it's easy for a builder to say like, oh, I stretch my strings for 10 hours, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it's crazy now because the real seasoned builders know that, like, and it's hard to say because if you give the impression that you don't stretch your strings, like the consumer side of it, you hear a company doesn't stretch their strings, they think, oh no, like my strings are going to stretch out.
Yeah.
But like with the way materials are built, like it takes little to nothing, and you can actually, a lot of these materials are blended material. So they have Vectrin, they have Dyneema. If you overstretch, your string gets it gets kind of lumpy. Those two materials make a composite material in your string. So if you overstretch it, you're actually damaging the material. You're outstretching, you're stretching the Dyneema more than you're stretching the Vectrin in a lot of cases. So it's like you can't really sit there and explain this to every customer that orders a string.
Yeah.
But we, here at Unbound, we do more precautionary, more just play it safe. Like we do use the cycle stretcher. We stretch at a certain rate, a certain amount of cycles, and we feel good about that. And I'll tell you this: there's a handful of us that are just like solo builders. You have your big companies that hire a bunch of people. There's a solo builder out there. I won't name drop him. He builds a phenomenal string. And he, strings don't stretch. He builds a really good solid set. I talk to him, frequently, but he does not stretch his string at all. I say that when you serve your string, the string's on a machine that's technically stretching it while you're
Yeah.
serving it. So the only stretching time that string sees is while he's laying it up, moving it from the layup post to the serving machine. However long it takes him to serve it, it's, getting stretched at several hundred pounds, and then he's bagging it up. So in most cases, he's bagging up a 5-piece Matthews set before like somebody else's 5-piece sets even a quarter way through their stretching period.
Huh.
He's boom, 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 done, bagged up, sent. Nobody has any issues at all. But if the word got out, hey, this guy's not stretching his strings very, like the industry thinks that like that's how strings are built.
Yeah.
It's such a rabbit hole. It's not quite how it works. It's just a very interesting topic.
So I'm gonna ask you. Well, I've got a couple cliche questions, but one of them I'm really curious about is like, how do let's just say, I don't let's just use an example. Someone like Gas, right? They're making strings, I feel like nonstop, right? They have such a high stock, I'm sure that they could just pick them off the shelf and ship them out. Is it a bunch of people in a warehouse just constantly stretching strings and putting them together, and everyone's got their own little job? Or I mean, how does that really work? Because I know when it comes down to custom strings, like, I've said this before, it's you people will get tired of a wait time. You tell someone, like, with my bow, I'll use my bow as an example. I was told 4 weeks. It was 5. I don't really care because it's a good, high quality, top notch product. Dude, take as much time as you need. As long as I have it before deer season, I'm good. And some people don't understand that. So like, it is it a different it's got to be a different method than from like the custom side of things, but is it still like how you were saying? Are they maybe, since that one guy you're talking about was able to put strings out so efficiently, is that maybe something that they're doing too?
Yeah, and I talked to Eric Griggs, the owner of Gas, from time to time. He's a great guy. When
Mm-hmm.
I got started, he helped me out, and I appreciate him for that. But I can't speak on his full process. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I've talked to him a little bit, and I've seen his videos, and I could tell he has. So, like, this station behind me is a part of one of my build stations. And over
Mm-hmm.
here, you can't see it, but on this side, I've got a layup post over here, some stretchers, and then behind me here, I got the serving machine and another layup post and some more stretchers. And so this would be like one station for one person building that has all this equipment. And in some of the Gas videos, you can tell that, you know, when he does the walkthroughs and stuff like that, he has like several stations that
Got
has
it.
some of the stretchers, some of the serving machines, and then he hires a team of guys and they come in and they work at their station building strings. And so he's able to just pump out a ton every single day.
So I assume then, like, say one day you get an order for a bunch of Hoyts, right? And then the next day you get a bunch of Matthews. If somebody were to do that, and I'm only asking this because I'm kind of trying to understand like that side of the industry, right? Because this, I would say, out of most of the archery stuff that I've dove into, strings is the last thing I've really thought about. But I would assume that like you've got your station and then you get the order and it's like, all right, we're doing a lift 29 or 29 and a half. And then the next order comes in, it's a Hoyt 29. And then you get a prime and you get and do they, comparing it to what you do you just pick off like whatever type of material and color they want and then figure out the length and then start the process? Or, I mean, how does all
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah. So for me, like, let's somebody places an order on the website, and then I wake up in the morning and I see what orders came in, and I'll write out it's like a build chart.
Mm-hmm.
So the bigger companies, they have like files of their build charts. And so I assume when someone orders a string, like it goes heads and it picks up the build chart, puts the color name, everything, and probably prints it out, or they're reading it from a screen. For me, like I'll print out a sheet that has like so if it's like a 5-piece Matthews set, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a diagram and it shows like the string and it shows a cable and it shows a yoke. So let's say they order like a black and pine 5-piece Matthews set. I'll print it, I'll write their name on it, I'll write black and pine, and then I'll write the specs out. And then I've pretty much have built, especially most of the recent bows, so I can reference past orders on like what I did my layup
Mm-hmm.
post on. So like the layup post is where we wrap, it's a 4-post unit it's kind of hard to describe to someone that hasn't seen one, but I'll move that to the exact, let's say like it's a 65-inch string. And so I need to set my post at, 56 or whatever it is and do the layup. By the time I do the layup, serve the ends, put it, stretch it a little bit, add the twist in and do my measurement. It's, I've done the bow so many times that like I'm within, just a twist or two of the exact length I need to be by the time it's like all stretched and done. So we do our checks here and there. And then, yeah, I go in order basically based on like the order number that comes through. I prioritize it by the order number, of course. And then, so if it's a Matthews, I'll lay that one up, I'll serve it, I'll get it on the stretcher. Next one's a Hoyt, I'll go right into moving my stuff around, doing the Hoyt. And then by the time I'm done with that, those are off the stretcher. That one's on the stretcher. And then I could do another one. So I do a handful, getting them stretching, letting them relax. And then I'll just cycle it in and I'll move, the Matthews and I'll go over to serving it. And then I'll go over to, then I'll do the speed knocks. I'll bag that one up and I'll do the Hoyt next. And then like once I get down to my last one, then I'll start doing the layup process again on a new order, getting it on a stretcher. So I try to be as efficient as I can and just rotate so I'm not doing the same thing all the time.
I gotcha. So, okay, well that helps me understand it then, because like I said, I didn't fully grasp how it worked, but like you mentioned a couple things there, and one of the things I wanted to ask you is like, so obviously I talk to Bergie all the time, and he stands by you guys, right? Y'all, how many strings, I would say, string sets a day do you usually go through? Because I know that you guys had to, I don't want to say take a break, and I don't want to say shut down, but basically had to put like a public thing out, like, hey, for the next 2 weeks, the shop's closed down. We're catching up on orders or whatever. I know it's during deer season, so makes sense. But like, what's a typical day look like?
Yeah, and it's looks a lot different for solo builders than it does company builders because of course company builders that's all they do is strings. So
Yeah.
they have and teams of guys. So they as much strings they can take in they can do. But for a solo builder, it's not uncommon, especially for the ones that are known, that make a good product. It's not uncommon for us to shut the website down and catch up on orders. And a lot of that is like, I have a full-time job, I've got a family, I've got my own hobbies. And it's like, man, then I get slammed with strings. And it varies, in a day, how many orders I do or how many I can take. But it's like, man, I wake up in the morning and I work my full-time job and I get off of work and it's like, go straight into string building. And I've built a process a lot faster now. But when I first started, like, it would be nothing for me to build till midnight, sometimes 1 a.m., wake up for my full-time job. And this is 7 days a week just to get caught back up. So now, I do a handful a day. I accept so many a week. And then if I'm going to like this weekend, we're going to a big archery event. It's called Shot 3DX. If you haven't heard of them, I recommend checking them out. It's a lot like TAC, but they're more local here to the Oklahoma area, Kansas, stuff like that. And we're going to have a booth there. So it's like so right now I shut the website down so I can catch up on the orders I have so I cannot be so stressed out, getting things ready for that event and come back to flood. Cause dude, I just get so flooded, with the equipment I have and just, being a solo builder, there's only so many strings I can do at a time.
I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Right.
Because I know that like in the, I think 2 years that I've known Bergie and the 2 years I've known about Unbound, I've seen the growth just go way up. Like,
yeah, shout out Bergie, man. And he, it's kind of, he's done a lot. He won a brand, like a brand impact award from us for last year. And dude, like he just, he does a really good job. I appreciate, the mutual, partnership we have. And he's always shouting us out, podcast and YouTube. And he just always does such a good job talking about, the brand and how the strings benefit, the tuning process and him being able to tune quick. And, he's getting a bow shipped to him and he's sending it back a certain way. Like he can't afford to have a string that's moving around. Like, people send a bow in, they want their bow back, they want it to perform and they want it to perform for an extended period of time. So he can't afford mistakes. And same for me. Another reason why I don't want to accept orders and get stuff just rushed in and out. And I tell people may be tired of, hearing me say this, but unlike the big builders, like you might as well put my name and face on the package, because I can't just say like Unbound built the string. No, they know it's me. I can't
Yeah.
afford to make a mistake and send it out, Like some of these bigger companies do a good job, and some of them, I'm sure, like you don't want your string built on a Friday by the 21-year-old having relationship issues at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's not to say they don't have QA, QC and stuff like that, but still, like we just can't afford mistakes like that.
Well, and something I've noticed, especially just in myself and, buddies around here and people in the community, they want something that's more personal, and I think that's a big reason why, like, guys like you, the custom string builders, and then, Dark Owl Archery and all these custom things that people are coming out with, they love that because it's not only specific to them, right? Like they could send in an order and be like, all right, I want this, this, and this made this way, and you're able to do it. And then it comes and it's actually done right. But you also have that personal, contact with the person doing it. So if you change your mind or you have a problem with the product, they can reach out and talk to the guy that put his hands on the product. And bigger companies and stuff, you can't really do that. And it's kind of like you're a number at that point.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. And, people text me all the time. They get my number off the website. They text me, they email me, they reach out on Facebook, Instagram. So it's just, it's nice to have that interaction, of course, with the customers. And I'll use this opportunity to give credit to Eric at Gas, because for someone that runs such a big company, like if he gives people his number and he responds to people on Facebook and reaches out through Messenger. So, it's impressive.
Yeah, that's a big thing, especially, being in this now for 3 years and going through, working with companies, not working with companies, having contacts and stuff and trying to get in contact with someone. It means a lot when I can send an email and I get one right back, or I send a text and I get one right back. And it's like, all right, cool. This person's actually engaged and you're not just a number to them. So, all right, I want to change gears here. I want to do a dive into Unbound. So, I'm going to ask you the most cliche question in the world, but what is different about Unbound from everybody else? What sets you guys apart and is the sole reason why people need to go to y'all for strings instead of just, Mike and Larry's giant bowstring company?
Right. And I'll tell people this, like the materials and the equipment out there, like anybody has access to it. And I've told this like analogy before. But that's like if I got all the ingredients for like a pizza, you know, and you got all the same ingredients, like the same dough, the same sauce, like everything like that. Like by the time you're done with yours and I'm done with mine, they're going to look way different. They're going to taste way different. So it's really, the process that we built. And it's not just the string itself, but it's like the customer service, the way, we deal with people, the way we engage with people, the way that, you know, I mean, I'm huge into hunting. I'm huge into 3D, so I know why someone on the hunting side would want their string a certain way. I know why somebody on the 3D side would want, their string a certain way. And I know other companies, that would be able to do that same thing. But like we use, and, one of our biggest things is that we use the bloodline fibers. And it's relatively new to the market because BCY has been around for so long. And
Mhm.
this material is a completely waxless material. As everyone knows, the wax can attract, dirt, grime, sand. It can get in the cams. It can get in the roller guard. It can chew up serving, and this stuff doesn't collect that dirt, dust, and grime. It's really good. Has really good UV, block stuff like that, and it beads water off of it. So yeah, it's a lot more resistant to the water and to the UV stuff like that, and just the process that we use. We use a combination. We use the bloodline. In a way, we use the best of both worlds, because I think that bloodline makes the best material on the market for bowstrings, and I think that BCY makes the best serving material. So I actually use a combination of the two. Um, and then our whole process of what we do, what we prioritize in our process, we talked about the 80-20 rule. I feel like I've done a good job, figuring out what the 20% of the process, you know, produces 80% of the results. And I want the person to have the results. That's what's important to me. So.
Yeah. See, and that dude, the bloodline stuff blows my mind because when I first got into this, I was always being told, make sure you wax your string. And I didn't do it for a little while there. I could show you my first bow, where the cable guard's at. Oh, dude, that thing is chewed up. I shot it one time and it sounded like it dry fired, but it didn't. And I just looked at it like, okay, that was 2 years ago. I'm like, I'm not shooting this thing. And I just, I don't really need it. So I haven't done anything with it. But when I heard about Bloodline and what it can do, I was like, dude, where has this been? Because it just makes sense, right? Like, why would you're taking a step out of, I guess, bow maintenance that a lot of people forget. I mean, I've seen some bows, man. I'll be at the range and I'll see some dude and his bow's kind of frayed a bit. And I'm just like, when's the last time you waxed that thing? And he goes, it's always one of two things. It's always, you're supposed to wax this, or he's like, oh man, I don't even know. I don't even worry about it. And I'm like, buddy, you've got maybe 5 more shots for that. It's hanging on by a strand, dude. Are you sure you want to shoot
Yeah.
that? And
So sorry.
go ahead. No, you're fine.
Now, didn't mean to cut you off there. Just made me think
You're
of
fine.
something. But the string starting to fray and break up, like that's already a sign that like the fiber's damaged. Like
Hmm.
when the fiber's damaged and split, no amount of wax is going to cause the fibers to like come back together. You know what I mean? Like the damage is already done. So
Yeah.
it's funny that people think that like all the fraying means that like you need to add wax to it, and it's not the case in the industry. Like you're saying, like the trend is like wax. It's funny because I've had like older gentlemen that work in bow shop or shoot bows be like, "Oh, there's no such thing as a waxless string," and it's like it's because it's all everybody ever knows.
Yeah.
And it's the funny thing is like one of our catchphrases is your grandpa used to wax your strings but you don't have to. And then we use the candle waxes, waxes for candle making, which is pretty funny. I've got that on a shirt as well. But what you'll see is even these bigger companies, so BCY is known for like their waxed fibers through the years.
Mhm.
And these some of the bigger bow companies, when they have a premium series of strings, BCY offers what's called a low wax material, and their premium strings will be used. They'll use the low wax material in their premium string, and it's like, well, then how premium does that make us? Because we don't use wax at all.
Exactly. And that's why I was wanting to know like what the difference is, because I feel like, again, I've said it before, but the custom side of things is starting to show that it really is better. You know, like, I mean, I don't even know, like the string on my prime. I don't know if I'm supposed to wax it. I haven't looked into what type of string it is. I know they offer like some sort of, you register your bow, you get new strings every 2 years, and that's great. But like, I don't know if it needs to be waxed. So I've just been waxing it just in case. And I've done it twice now. I've had the bow for a month. And as dumb as this might sound, I hate having to wax it because I always forget. I don't think about it. I'm more concerned about where the arrow's hitting and if I need to move the sight, if I'm seeing arrow wobble, if the tune is good. Like, I'm worried about that. I'm not worried about coming inside, hanging up, and be like, oh, let me grab this wax real quick, and then just going up and down. So, dude, I gotta get some of that bloodline stuff. That's basically what I'm getting at. It's so cool that we've gotten to a point now where no one has to worry about it. But what do you think is the reason? Like, are bigger companies using this stuff too, or is this still kind of a custom bowstring material?
So it's kind of interesting because I've talked to bigger builders and even smaller. There's not a whole lot of us. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of people that do the compound stuff that at least, have an LLC and have a website. There's several people that build it for just themselves and them families. But I've asked some of these guys that have been around a while. I'm like, why won't offer the bloodline stuff? And it's a very interesting response. And what I get out of it is BCY, there for a while it was just them and Brownell. Brownell's kind of sold coming and out, and they don't do a whole lot of business anymore. I think they're in Canada now. So pretty much
Mhm.
now it's just BCY and Bloodline. Well, I guess like when BCY started, they helped get a lot of these companies started into string building. Like they helped
Mhm.
them with the process. They helped them, like just with overall how to build a string and with helping them with the fiber. So now you have these builders that have been doing it forever, that like that's the material they started with. Like BCY, like in a way they feel kind of what's the right word? Like their dedication and stuff is like to the BCY company, and they've got a relationship with them that they don't want to step on toes and stuff by offering the the bloodline material, which I
I
can
get
see,
that.
which makes
Yeah,
sense.
I get that. I mean, loyalty is important, but I just feel like you could offer both. Like why not?
Yeah, and
But
some companies do.
yeah, I don't know. To me, it's a simple thing. If a new product comes out, like, and it's better than everything else, why not use it? Because you're just gonna upgrade everybody else. So I don't know. Maybe that's just my layman's term opinion, but I want to ask you something that I've never really thought about, but like you were talking about speed knocks earlier, and I've always wondered what exactly, and it's probably very simple, but what's the process of like putting those on and what's the use for them? Because to me, it feels like more weight on the string. That wouldn't that slow it down?
And weight on the string is actually like what adds the speed. So when you draw your bow back and you release, the string comes forward, and if you watch slow mo, like you see the whole bow shaking and the string oscillates, so it's like a whip. So when you add weight on it, when it goes forward and like it has like a whipping motion back. And what engineers do is, so when they build a bow and they get a string put on, they'll start in a certain position and they'll add a speed knock, top and bottom, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
shoot it through a chrono. And if it goes up in speed, they'll add another one next to it. And if it goes up in speed or maybe stays the same, they'll add another one to it. And if it goes down, they'll remove that one. And then they'll move down and they'll put another one on and they'll do the same thing. That's why on these bows, sometimes you'll just see one, going down. Sometimes you'll see three and then a space and five and then a space and two. And that's all testing from the engineers to find out, exactly what weights and what locations are needed to, get that effect.
So then explain to me why when you go on like it's not Podium Archer, it's Omni calculator or something like that, when you're looking at like trying to figure out what your bow speed's going to be, like if you don't have a chrono like I don't, right? I could go up the street and shoot, but sometimes I don't have the time for that. So if I'm doing like a new arrow build, where I actually just did this recently where I went to the shop, shot the bow, got the speed, and was able to sort of backtrack and found, at least from what this is telling me, how many grains are on the string. But what I noticed when you do that is, say, like right now, I think mine's like 30 grains on my string. If you go up to 35, the speed goes down. But if you add weight, like from what you're saying, if there's more weight on the string, it should be faster, right? Or am I not
It's
understanding?
very bow specific. So like I said, every single bow is going to be different on the placement.
Yeah.
And that's what they do is like they'll add it in a location, shoot it through the chrono, and then add another one. If it goes up, they keep adding.
Mm-hmm.
If they get to a point where it loses speed, they're going to take off, and that's going to be like a bank of speed knocks. And then they move down the string.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's like now from the factory, so that bow behind you, like the engineers already did all the work. So every one of those exact make and model is going to have those speed knock weights and locations exact spot. If you go over and you take off from what they have or you add on, it's going to slow down in most
That's
cases.
crazy. See, I've always just, I came up looking at that stuff and be like, oh, that's a string dampener. That's just gonna make the string quieter, and then I started hearing about speed knocks, and I'm just like, what even is this? It doesn't make it to me, it doesn't make sense if you add weight on the string. But I get it because, who is it that said every action has an equal and opposite reaction? So
Right.
if you're drawing back more weight, it does make sense at a certain point to find the peak speed, that once you let it go, all that weight's going to move the string faster than if
Yep.
you took it off, then it
Yep.
wouldn't.
That's
So
exactly right.
that's crazy, man. There's so much more to this string stuff than I ever thought. Like
Yeah, it's
I know
such a rabbit
there's
hole.
I know there's stuff I'm missing, but like what okay, so say somebody placed the order, right? What's the general lead time for you? Like, say I go on there now and I'm like, hey, all flow orange, black serving, prime form. When would I expect to see it?
It really depends on, the time of year. So like February, September, August, those are February, believe it or not, it's like my busiest month of the year. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people after hunting season, they put their bows away, and then come February, like they're getting bows back out or buying new bows, or like they kind of 3Ds coming around the corner, they're shooting indoor, whatever it is. Like I feel like that's when a lot of people start dusting their bows off. But yeah, it really just depends on how many orders I get. But like let's just say I didn't have any orders at all whatsoever, and you ordered a string, like I could have that string built, packaged up, ready to ship like within a couple hours.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty quick process.
Dang. I don't know why I thought it was longer than that.
I tell people, just because of like I do it based on first come first serve, of course, most people should. But if when I turn the website back on, I'll tell people like a week or two, I'll have, variants in there for if I turn the website on and I get freaking absolutely hammered, like it could be a couple weeks.
I got you.
Otherwise, I tried my hardest to get, strings out within just a couple days, and sometimes even the next day.
So is the plan to get Unbound to be like your sole, that's all you're doing? Or are you
Yes.
gonna,
At some point,
okay.
yeah, at some point, that's, of course, I think what most people would want to do, with their business. But I've got, I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs or people that started business are like at the same point where I'm at, where it's like, on one hand, I've worked very hard for the career I have, and I make really good money. I have really good health benefits. My insurance is awesome. And it's like, at some point, I get a lot of people that ask if I want to do this full time. And it's like, yes, I've got to take that dive and, miss out on, the benefits and have to pay, what it would be like to pay for insurance out of pocket. It's just freaking nuts, dude.
Oh yeah. Believe me, we've
So,
looked at it and it hurt. I didn't have to do it, thankfully, but it definitely hurt. I mean, because this podcast was the same idea when I first started. Because I'm buddies with Kurt and those guys at Working Class and getting to see what they've done, and they're the reason I even started this. And then I remember talking to Kurt when I first got into it, and I was like, "All right, man, look, you've gone full time. You were doing what I'm doing, working working a 9 to 5, which my hours are never like that, but just in the general sense." I was like, "How'd you do it?" And he's like, "Man, you're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifices. You're gonna have to really, really stay consistent, and it's gonna take time." And so I feel like I've gotten to the point now where it's like, all right, things are moving, it's growing, but what's the next step? Because the leap of faith is a huge, huge thing that I've contemplated. I'm like, same thing. I've got health insurance. I've worked, at the same company now for 5 years and really been solidifying my position there. And it's like, would I even mentally be able to be like, all right, I'm leaving all that time and relationships I've built and stuff like that, and I'm just going to do this, and I get it. I just feel like taking that leap of faith is tough, and
yeah, man.
you're in a position though where your growth, like I was talking earlier, your growth is there. I mean, I see it all over the place, and I don't know. I mean, if you ever went full time, I'd be super hyped for you, because I feel like guys like you can make a difference in the community, in the archery community, because you're not fluffing anything up. You're not saying, "Oh, this string is going to give you 20 foot a second faster," and then you get two. You're building a quality product that's going to make people come back, and that's exactly what you want.
Yep. Yeah, you're
So
exactly right. And I'll shoot it to people straight, and I don't, um, I'm not big on like bells and whistles and stuff. Like I just want to make a good product, and I want people to be satisfied with it. That's what's important to me. The customer service is, in some cases more important. You can't just it's not enough to have a good product.
yeah,
You have to have good customer service.
yeah, that's
So,
a big thing. I've had some people reach out, and it kind of shocks me, and I wonder if it's like a circumstantial thing, but certain partners that I've been with for a year, 2 years, whatever, and I'll get buddies text me and like, "Man, I ordered this. They told me this time frame, and I haven't heard anything back. Like, can you call so and so and ask?" And I'm like, "Well, who have you talked to?" And if it's somebody that I've never met or never heard of, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll reach out and see what I can do." But then a lot of the times it's the same person that I've had on the podcast, the same person I was able to strike the deal with, like buddies of mine. And I just tell them, I'm like, look, man, they've been super busy. You just got to be patient. You can't, we're in that day and age now where it's like, all right, I just paid for this thing on Amazon. I want it tonight. And you can't do
Yeah,
it.
yep, you're 100% right. But yeah, that's the goal, man. At some point, need to hire some builders and just, build some capital, and growth like really eats at capital, and just go from there. Take the leap. I'm living really comfortably. Like when I say that, like I'm in a comfort zone, right? Like living
Mm.
comfortably. Like I got the good health insurance and good paying job, everything like that. But yeah, you've got to, if you want to be successful in business, you got to take some risks. You got to risk, potentially failing, but that's just all a part of it, and it's funny because I get a lot of people asking about, pro staff opportunities, and I'm like, the benefit of a pro staff is you give free or discounted strings, and that person, talks about it and sends people your way. I'm like, I need the opposite of that. Like I don't need, like I need less people almost, like I got to shut the website down. It's a blessing and a curse. I'm thankful for all the customers and stuff, but it's just, I don't want to ever bite off more than I can chew. And it's one of the reasons, like, are you familiar with like SEO and stuff?
No.
So
Like
SEO is search engine optimization, and a lot of
okay.
these companies, like they'll pay. So like right now, if you Google custom compound bowstring, like Unbound is, like I haven't paid to do it. So like yeah, I'm curious if you Google it. I want to see what company's paying and really getting their SEO. Because if you want to do this and have a big company, like SEO is very important. So whatever the first company that pops up when you type in custom bowstrings, who is it?
60x.
Yep. So 60x has their SEO. Good job, 60x. You're doing your SEO right.
Yeah,
But
you
any variation of that. So now if you type in bloodline, custom bloodline bowstring, I wonder which one of the bloodline. So all that to say, like I've never cared about SEO. I've never, paid to have my stuff pop up first or show up first. All of the people that come to our website, they don't stumble upon it on accident. Like if
yeah.
they come here on purpose, like they seek out Unbound.
Yeah. I mean, the reason they do that is because it's good quality stuff. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like that. And
Yep.
and I love being able to tell someone like, I had a conversation with a buddy the other day. I'm not going to name drop because there's some stuff going on, but I told him, I'm like, listen, don't worry about all this high school crap. Okay. Don't worry about everything that you're being told. Don't worry about the calls you're getting. Don't worry about any of that. Let your work speak for you. And that's going to be enough. It's like you're doing everything right. You make the best product in the field that you're in. You're still just keep grinding and block all that out and you'll be fine. And it's the same thing like with Unbound, man. Like you're not, like I said earlier, you're not out there fluffing it up. You're just making a good product with good customer service, and that's what people want. It's a personal thing, a personal side to all of this, especially the archery stuff, man. Because again, I've had instances where I'm trying to get a certain product or I order something or whatever, and I cannot get a hold of anyone to save my life. And it's very frustrating. And there's been times I'm like, you know what? Forget it. Like I was going to talk about this on the podcast. I was going to tell my buddies, but because this isn't working out the way that it generally should, because I'm not special. I don't feel like I need special treatment. Um, I'm hard pressed to talk to any of the partners about a giveaway or getting hooked up with any product or anything. I hate asking. So like I'm not that type of guy. But when something like that comes along, if I can't talk to somebody, then where does that leave me? In the dark? So
Yep, you're 100% right. And a good example, like strings aren't cheap, especially anymore. And I know what my prices are. And I remember a time where like I had to go, like several months with like a really crappy string that may have been unsafe, like, and I think about, the person that maybe had to save up money, and they bought a string. Like I think about stuff like that a lot. I think about that person that, they're months away from going on they paid, thousands of dollars to go on a hunt to Africa. Like that person's string cannot be like piece of crap falling apart. Like
mhm.
that would feel so bad if something happened, like, and I think like, you know, coming from like that side of things of like, being a bow hunter and knowing what it's like to work hard for money, and saving up and buying something. Like, it just means a lot that people pick me and trust, and it just feels good. And I definitely keep stuff like that in mind while I'm building.
Yeah, I mean, people have to, and I'm not saying that no one does this, but like, perfect example. I was at TAC in Tennessee, and my buddy Kevin from Second Amendment Outdoors had his bow with him, and mine was still in the car. And like, there's a clip, there's a clip on YouTube of us talking about that. And he was like, yeah, Eric's got his new bow, so it's not out yet. He's got it in the car still. And I specifically said, I was like, dude, it's my first flagship. I treat that thing like it is the most important piece of equipment on the planet, because in my world it is. And I was nervous the day before. I had let my daughter, not my daughter, my niece hold it, and I was like, I had both hands under that bow in case she's 10 and she's small for her age, and I was like, I had both hands under that bow because if she let go of it, I'm not letting it hit the ground. But there's guys out there that they don't think about it, or they get it, they think about it, and then they get comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and then like you said,
Yep.
they go to Africa and they have a problem.
Yep. And
So
archery, I've talked about this several times, but like archery is such a mental game. It's like
mhm.
mostly mental. So like even for you with your people treat their bow so differently. But like if you were getting ready to go on a big hunt and you handed someone your bow and they dropped it, do you really want that in your mind when you're drawn back on African game, like that your
Nope.
bow was dropped? Like you don't want that messing with you. So I definitely
Exactly.
don't blame you. Like you want to have full confidence in your equipment. Like that means everything.
Yeah. I mean, I even get so nervous. I might need a new bow case because I'll put in the bow case, and how some of them have like the little peg coming up where you set the cables in between. Well, this case doesn't really fit it perfectly. And there's been a couple times where I'll put it in there and I see it's kind of rubbing up against the cable just a little bit. And I'm like, I don't like that. I was like, I need to get some felt or something and put it in between there so it doesn't mess it up. But I don't know. I guess I'm a little OCD with that, and but again, it's because like we were saying earlier, I want the equipment that I have, I want it to be as efficient as it can be.
And that'll
And
also cause your strings to last a lot longer because it's like the only thing on the bow that's a consumable.
yeah,
So eventually your strings will have to be replaced. They will break down. Fibers will break down over time. And people are like, oh, why is, and maybe not even like our company, but any company in general, like, why is this string like wearing down? I've only had the bow for 6 months. And it's like, well, how do you store your bow? Do you just throw it in the back of your truck? Like fibers aren't indestructible. I know a
yeah.
guy that said like, hey, my string's chewed up, and like I've seen him at 3D events with a wrist release, holding the bow by the string and the wrist release, just smacking the string the whole
Oh,
time. And it's like how you carry your bow, how you store your bow. Like guys that spot and stock, and their bow on the ground or drag it through brush, of course it's not going to last near as long. And what's funny is even like, and you might notice this around in between the D loop and the peep, you might get a little fuzzy because of your beard.
hmm.
Like that can actually like
Yep.
abrase the string a little bit. So
I
there's
have
just so
had
many
that happen.
variables.
I've even worn
Yeah.
a spot on the string, like on the serving where my nose touches. You could see it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, having a big nose sucks. Dang it, man. But yeah, I mean, I know a guy, one of my good buddies at work. He's a bow hunter, and I've sold him one bow. Yeah, one of my old bows. And he was telling me about how he was at their local range, and his buddy pulled his bow out of his truck, went to shoot it, and the thing exploded. And they looked, and he was like, "Well, what happened?" It was brand new bow, or well, brand new, right? He only had it for like a year. And my first thought was, well, how did he store it? And he was like, oh, he just left it in the back of his truck. And I'm like, do you realize that now with how hot Georgia summers get, you have that bow in extremely hot temperatures. Then he pulls it out and shoots it. That's already going to mess some stuff up. Then you had it in there in the wintertime. Well, now that's really cold temperatures. Granted, 32, 20 degrees, whatever. That's not super cold, but it's cold enough. I was like, of course. Did he ever wax it? No, I never waxed it. Well, dude, what do you expect? Like, he's not taking care of it. So I don't know. Archery definitely taught me a lot about responsibility, that and having a kid. But
Yep.
archery, archery almost has more because the kid's easy. Make sure she's fed,
Right.
make sure she's safe. Back when she had diapers, had to change them. Sometimes I pawn it off of my wife. Sometimes I wouldn't. I mean, I just feel like as a whole, archery will teach you a lot, and definitely taking care of
Yes.
the strings.
Yep.
Even if you don't have to wax them, don't leave your bow in the car all summer. 100-degree weather is not good for any string. Doesn't matter what what quality or what, material it is. So I don't know.
For
I
sure.
feel like we're kind of, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but people that do this, they need to hear it,
Yeah. Yep. Great point. Does your wife shoot a bow too?
So I'm working on that. I've been working on that since I got my first one. So 5 years of like, oh, you should shoot the bow. And she's like, well, I can't draw it back. And she doesn't really, it's gonna sound bad, and I don't mean it to, but she's not a big fan of hunting. And what I mean by that is how much time I spend doing it. She loves deer meat. I mean, she told me the other day, she was like, you need to kill about 4 or 5 deer this year. And I looked at her, I'm like, what?
That's awesome. Challenge
Yeah.
accepted.
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, you want me to what now? And she's like, yeah, so we don't run out. And I took that opportunity to kind of play to my favor. And I was like, well, you do understand if you want the many deer dead, I'm gonna have to go more. And she was like, no, you don't. She's like, just be less picky. And then I was like, well, wait a minute now. I was like, I you know me. All right. If I got bucks on camera, I'm not shooting the first doe that walks out. So I was like, I'll find a spot that's mostly does and we'll just do that. But she's open to it. It's just the bows that I have don't go down. I have one bow that'll go down in poundage enough. Um, because the two behind me, she's not shooting the prime. She's definitely not shooting the prime. But the bear that's next to it only goes to 55. And she's strong, but I don't think she's got the muscle developed in her shoulder for that. So I told her, I was like, I'll restring my first bow that goes from like 40 to 70. I'll drop it down to 45 or 50 and we can see what you can do. The problem is, and here, you know what? Let me grab this. I'll show you why I haven't let her do this yet.
Yeah, no problem.
So I need to organize this better. As you can tell, it's not exactly top of the line, right? It's a Walmart, or not Walmart, Bass Pro Special. And right there on the cable guard, I don't know if you can see it, but like up in here, there's string fibers inside the cable guard. Like the string's definitely shot. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
I told her, when let me come back. When we were talking about it, I was like, you can shoot it. I was like, but I can't promise you it's not going to blow up. It's like, last time I shot it, it sounded like, limbs cracked or something happened and everything's fine on it. But so her thing is, if she's going to get into it, she needs new strings on there. So
Dude, if she's gonna get into it, I will send you a string for that bow. You got to get her started. So
I
my
will tell
wife,
her
she started at 30 pounds. That was like, and you might have to, like, if she can't draw that back, you might have to take her to a shop, and get something lighter weight. But when she first started, like 30 is what she could draw, and she's up at around the 50 now over the last few years. But you mentioned that your wife made a comment about like how often you're hunting or something to that effect. But if you look at it and pitch it to her like, you could come along and spend time with me. When we go outside, like my wife and I, when we're outside practicing, we're spending time together when we're like tinkering on bows. So like it's one of those things where archery could be something that you guys share together, and it actually
yeah.
will bring you closer and allow you to spend more time together.
See, and I have done that. I've pitched it every way I can. I've said, because we've gone hunting before, but the problem is in her earlier years, she dated some dude that hunted and it was a very bad experience. And so she's and really, when I got into it, because I've only been hunting now for 6 years. And I started right after we got married. It's almost like I make the joke all the time that I'm like, hey, I was always going to do this. I just waited to lock you down before I did. And she hates that. But I got really, really obsessive over it. Like I'm talking, I'd wake up multiple times a night just to look at a camera. And the next morning, the first thing I would say is, oh, so-and-so showed up. What do you think I should do? And I'm like, looking back, it's like, you're not even a hunter. You make a lot of sense. You make way more sense than I ever do, but you're not a hunter. Why am I bothering you with this? So I kind of tainted it for her a little bit. But here lately, I have been telling her, like, listen, if you want to get into it, because I told her the same thing. I'm like, we can go to the range. She wants to get more active. Let's go. We have a 30 target range 10 minutes from the house. It's like, we could go do that. You're hiking, you're shooting a bow, you're out in the woods. Like, it's a fun time. So she's definitely open to it. I just think and I've got buddies at the local shop that, would help train her or whatever. But she's so self-conscious about that part too, that like she's openly said, I'm not shooting anything. I'm not shooting any bow unless it's just you with me. And
Yeah.
so I'm working on it. I think if I can get her to do it once or twice and actually like realize, because they say women are better at archery than men are,
Yeah.
which
Pick it up faster. I think,
yeah.
yeah, the biggest thing, I think a lot of women can relate to that. Like they don't want to go to a shop where it's a bunch of dudes that shoot all the time,
Yeah.
and kind of embarrass themselves. But a lot of the things I think, like a lot of mistakes I see is just people like out bowing, or over bowing, you should say, or, trying to draw back too much weight, or just
Mm,
because they got the bow back one time, like that's the draw weight they should be at. Like start as low as you can. Like make it to where she can draw it back without you helping her so she can comfortably doing it. Shoulder doesn't hurt. So she can get all the fundamentals of standing, drawing, anchoring, form, aim, follow through, like all that
yeah.
stuff. And then once that stuff solidified, like step up the poundage from there. If you start off, too high early just because they can draw it back, like they're fatigued early, it just, like, shoulders hurting, and then their stance becomes off, and then archery's not fun because stuff's hurting. Like, so I definitely recommend like starting as low as you can, just to get started in it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I did. Now granted, I didn't want to do that. When I first that bow actually, when I took it up to the shop, there was a dude working there who thankfully doesn't work there anymore. But he was terrible, right? And I walk in and I'm like, hey, and I said the one thing I never should have said because I walked out spending $300, but I already had the bow, didn't have any arrows, and I go, hey, I need some arrows built. I need the bow tuned, set to my draw length. It's at 70. It's my first bow. I don't know what I'm doing, so I need you to set it up. And he did that, and $300 later and a hurt shoulder later, I was set up, right? But so this is the thing. I said, hey, can you set it to 55? And so he set it to 55. We go out on the range. I go to draw it back, and I hear my shoulder. And anyone that shot a bow knows this
Oh
this feeling.
no.
I bet I literally hear
Oh
it,
no.
and I'm like, I'm holding the bow back, but I'm like, So I let the arrow go, and my shoulder's throbbing, right?
Wow.
And I look at him, and I'm like, yeah, we might need to bump this down to 50, right? And I mean, I could still move it, like it was just never used that way, and he ended up putting it down to 40. Didn't tell me, and this is why I have the biggest problem with it. He never told me what the poundage was. Gave me arrows that I was hunting with that were 325 grains total weight. Okay. And when I talked to them about broadheads, I said, hey, what broadhead should I get? And they gave me this 2.3-inch rage. And I'm just like, looking back, I'm like, dude, what the heck? So my thing now is like, I don't want her to have, the same experience, which obviously now that I know what I'm doing, it's not going to happen. But it it definitely, she does get intimidated by it. I mean, we were hanging at the archery shop a few months ago, and you know who Jay Maxwell is? 4610 used to be with Seek One.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Well, he lives 20 minutes from us. He lives in the town that this shop is in, and they were having an event. They had some local legends in there. Jay came by, and we're all just hanging out, cutting up, talking archery, and she's sitting there. And I asked her when we got back, I was like, why didn't you want, because I did ask her in there, you want to shoot a bow? And she's like, no, I'm good. I was like, why didn't you want to shoot a bow? And I didn't really think about the fact, like, well, wait a minute, you've got one of the best deer killers in the state that we've watched all of his videos, right? He's a friend of ours. He's there. We've got a dude who's killed 104 turkeys with a bow that's sitting right over there. You've got all the archery techs in here. You've got me, which granted, I'm not gonna mess with her like that or anything or think anything different, but the other people don't know. Yeah, that's intimidating. That's extremely intimidating. So
Yeah, it makes me think like how many people in the world are interested in archery but will never get into it because like some of these shops are very unwelcoming. They kind of act like they don't want to be bothered, and some of them just don't have like, the right bows for certain people to try out, especially women and youth. Like you might
mhm.
only have a few bows, they might be the opposite hand, or they might be too much draw weight, or whatever the case may be. It's just now that I'm thinking about it, it's just an interesting thing. I wish there was more, like opportunities or things specifically, for youth, women, first time people, because these shops are made for like people that, are already shooting a bow. It feels like,
Yeah.
in a way, the way things are set up. They just, of course, they're a business, they need to make their money, but I just wish it was easier, for people to kind of get started.
I mean, I can tell you again from experience, like that first day I walked in, I almost didn't go. Like I had the bow for about 2 weeks and I was like very intimidated by it. Cause again, you don't want to look like an idiot in front of people. But I walked in there and it was exactly what you're saying. Like I felt like I was bothering the guy. And it shouldn't be like that. Now, thankfully, it's not like that anymore. They're very welcoming in there. You walk in there and there's kids that walk in like, oh, buddy, you want to shoot this bow over here? And they give them like this little Genesis youth bow. It's much better now, but I've heard horror stories, man. Where I know a guy. I'll tell you this one. I know a guy who has been shopping for a new bear for 2 years, and he's changed the strings on it. He's learned how to tune it himself. He's done all this stuff. He had to replace the cams, and the cams, were working fine, but the string still wasn't. It just wasn't working out, right? And so he's been shopping for a new bow for years, and finally is at the point that he's going to get one. He went down to this very well-known shop in Georgia that I'm not going to say, but he went down there and said to them, "Hey, I'm shopping around for a new bow. Kind of want to test out the waters." They would not let him shoot a single one if he wasn't going to buy it. And he was like, "Oh, all right, well, thanks then," and left. And I'm like, dude, you cannot do that. Imagine if I went in there my first time. It was like, I'm brand new and they hand me a lift and I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess this works. And then I can't draw it back. And I have to be like, can you change it to, this mod or something that's a little bit less? And like, I feel like every shop needs to be more well-rounded and have bows, that's suited for everybody because
Yep, such a good point. I know so many people that have similar stories like that. Like they go in, the shop couldn't be bothered. So yeah,
Mhm.
you have the issue of people not wanting to get started, and then you have the whole separate issue you just brought up of the people that do finally decide to take, the first step of getting into it, and they go to the shop and they try to shoot bows. The person doesn't want to be bothered. They don't want to turn the bow down or put it the right draw length, and just
Yeah.
ruin the experience for them. And now they never want to try it again.
I mean, I will openly say I shot a crossbow for a whole season just because I was nervous about actually getting into archery. And that's not right. I mean, that's every time it comes up on this podcast, I always try to tell people like find a good shop. And that's why I push the local shop on the podcast because it's like those guys are good, and if they're not, let me know and I'll chew them a new one because they know better than that. Like I spent all last summer telling them, hey, you need more budget bows in stock. You can't just be a dealer for a company and not promote that, right? Like, back when I was shooting bears, they had no bears. There was literally no bears on the shelf at all. And I'm like, well, what, I want to buy from you guys, but if I can't even shoot the bow to know that I want to shoot it, how am I supposed to do that? I'm not going to spend $600 or whatever it is and get the bow and be like, dang, I really don't like this. And so they thankfully have sort of opened it up. They've got budget bows now. They've got bows that range from, 40 pounds to 70. There's bows that they have that range from 10 to 70. I don't recommend shooting them because, I've got slapped in the arm enough, but it's, I don't know, man. Bow shops, I feel like need to really make a change. And that leads me to, I guess, the last thing I want to ask you before we wrap this up. What do you think is the next step? And I think I asked Bergie this, and he gave me a very cryptic, long-winded answer. But maybe the answer is that way. What do you think the next step in innovation with bows and innovation with strings is going to be? Because I feel like we're getting to a point as far as speed is concerned where we're kind of at the peak now. Like I feel like we've kind of plateaued a bit, and there's gonna have to be a major change to sort of have the new greatest thing, speed wise or really anything down that road. Like, what are you thinking is going to be the next big thing that drops?
Man, that's a tough question. I've thought about that too. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head on like the efficiency of like what modern compound bows is versus like what you put in and what you get out, but it's a crazy number. It's a number that in engineering you almost don't see that number anywhere else. And
Hmm.
here we're seeing this percentage in compound bows. So there's almost no room in there. I think in order for it to get to, anything different, like it's going to have to look pretty much way different than what a current compound bow looks like. Just from like an engineering, mechanical standpoint. I think, like what Kevin's doing with more aggressive cams and stuff like that. And now you're seeing like innovation and like tuning.
Hmm.
But for speed, yeah, I think it's gonna have a bow's gonna have to look a whole lot different than it does now.
I wonder what that would
Um,
look like.
and you're gonna have to maybe give up, some comfort and give up some things to get that.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing that I've always been told is like if you want a fast bow, it's going to be a little harder to draw back. But what I've noticed with two brands specifically is obviously the Prime, right? Like that most comfortable bow I've ever drawn back. That was a big thing for me last year. Is that Bear that I've got? It might be a budget bow, but buddy, it draws like one. I mean, it's stiff, And I was shooting 280, but it was tough. I mean, there was multiple times I could like distinctly remember having a deer in front of me and I would draw back and I would look at the bow and it'd be so torqued because I forced it back that I'd have to like really, I guess, um, consciously turn my wrist. And it's like, it should be such a fluid motion that you just do it. And I've noticed with Prime, they're not the fastest, but they're definitely comfortable. And I know that with the mods and everything that they have, um, it's still comfortable compared to like, an 80-pound Matthews or Hoyt. But
Hmm.
even Hoyt, that was the second bow that I shot recently, and it was at 75 pounds. And I drew it back, and it did not feel that way. It was smooth. It it felt like 65 pounds. So when I did go through, shooting every single brand, the one thing I noticed is like we're getting better speed, but the draw cycle is not as aggressive as you would think. And I'm just curious, like, is that cam design? Is that a roller guard? Is that there's got to be something that's changing? So I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, a lot of that, yeah, has to do with the overall design of the bow, how the limbs flex, the materials they're using, stuff that's just built, tougher. Like you've probably noticed a trend of the limbs getting a lot wider over the last several
Yeah.
years. All the bows are doing that now. So they're just getting a lot beefier. The risers are more rigid, like there's not near as much flex in them. They're a lot easier to tune. Yeah, it's the technology is just crazy. I mean, I'm impressed. Like there's really not a company that makes, a horrible bow anymore.
Yeah. Well, and
And
that's the
so
thing
now,
is like
yeah.
even the budget bows that Bear makes, you take that and compare it to a flagship from like 10 years ago, night and day. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's so much better. And like,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to like say, oh, people should. I want people to shoot whatever they want to shoot. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Prime, but some people like them, some people don't. I know guys. Hell, I talked to one dude at TAC, and we were talking about the form, and I was like, "So what do you think about it?" And he's like, "Man, I hate it." He's like, "It's the worst shooting bow that I've got." And he's like, he does uh, reviews and stuff. I'm not going to name drop because I know he wouldn't want me to, but um, he's like, I don't like how unstable it is. That center grip just doesn't. And I'm looking at him like, you're completely wrong. Like, what are you talking about? It's super stable. It draws fine, but it goes to people's preferences. So,
Yeah, it's crazy how different people's preferences are. Like on
dude,
one end, you have people that are like they're about the weight, like I want a super light bow.
yeah,
And then there's people that are like, I don't care how light it is, like I don't want any vibration when I shoot. And there's some people are like, no, like I want it to draw smooth. No, I
mhm,
want, the speed of it. And it's crazy, like everyone has their things. Like for me, I've never really cared too much about like vibration and noise or like, how heavy a bow is. Like I do
yeah.
like a smooth drawing bow. I like a bow that has a solid back wall, that's easy to tune. And yeah, people just are completely different with their preferences. You're right on that.
What are you shooting this year?
Lift.
Ah, nice. Have you had any limb issues with that?
It's funny because my lift from last year, yes, but this year's lift, they got, they supposedly, they say they alleviated those limb issues, and so far I haven't had any issues or know of anyone on the Lift X's, and I think they're doing it right on
Yeah.
last year's lift. where they're, warranting if you have an issue, not only you, but like if anybody that buys one, like peace of mind, like, hey, if you buy a used one and you have issues, let us know. They're
Yeah.
going to take care of it right away.
Yeah, that was a big thing when they came out with that, because like my buddy's got a lift and he's on his third set of limbs, and I was giving him crap for it, but I felt bad, you know, because I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Matthews is a great company. They do make a solid bow. I shot one, it wasn't for me, but people love them, and I was just curious because everyone I've talked to that shoots a lift, I just want to know, like, is it as widespread as I thought? Because I never thought. I mean, he's had this bow for over a year. He's killed multiple deer with it, and he was just shooting it the other day, and he sent me a photo, and there it was, splintered. So he took it to the shop, got some new limbs put on, shot it twice, and the second time it splintered. So I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I mean, what exactly was the problem? Was it just people putting them in presses wrong, or
Man, it's hard to say. It just must have been like the design of how they were cutting it,
mm,
or they just had a real bad batches of carbon. It's just hard to say. What I noticed though with mine and several people's is like it reminded me of like the old Hoyts where it just lifted a little splinter. And I get
yeah,
it, right? You pay that much money, you don't want to do it, but people were like freaking out, like their bow was going to explode and it was unsafe. And it's like, if you remember like early 2000s Hoyts, like when they were splintering, like the engineering team would tell you, take people probably remember this from the manuals and stuff, but like take toenail clippers, clip off the splinter and put super glue in it, and then when it dries, sand it off. And like I've seen bigger chunks out of those Hoyt ones, and like
yeah.
with my Matthews, it had the tiniest little splinter, and I shot it for several months, and I think I shot my deer, and then after season I got it taken care of. But
That's
I get
crazy,
it,
man.
when you buy that expensive of a boat, you don't want anything to
Oh yeah.
happen.
Well, and I
But
know
I
like
think
Darton went through the same thing, and when they made a public statement on it, and it I guess turned out to be true, but they were like, dude, it's the limb's not splitting, it's the finish. The finish isn't
yeah,
sticking to it. That's all that it
yep,
is. So
yeah.
I don't know,
And
man.
supposedly, maybe somebody listening can sort this out for sure, but it's my understanding that a lot of these bow manufacturers are getting their limbs from like the same place.
Really?
Like, it turns out carbon's not something that's made, widely made everywhere. It's like specialized equipment, certain things. But I guess the a lot of these companies get their limbs from the same places.
Hmm.
So from there, you just think about like the shape and how it's cut, and you're right, like the finish on it and everything, like the design of the bow, like what's causing some to crack, splinter, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so interested to see what the next step is. I know Prime is coming out with something soon, and I've been begging them to tell me. And Brian keeps dangling that carrot in front of me. He's like, man, just wait for this weekend attack. And I'm like, dude, just tell me what it is. I want to
Yep,
know.
it's crazy how close they're getting pretty good at being closed lip about it.
I know. Well, not good enough because I have been told by one person what it probably is, but I haven't been able to confirm it. So I guess we'll find out. But anyway, man, before we wrap it up, is there anything we missed on Unbound? Is there anything you wanted to cover that we didn't?
Ooh, that's tough. What's going to happen is about 10 minutes after we get off, I'm going to think of about five things. I can't right now, but if anyone's
We'll just have
listening
to
to
do
this and
another
they have
episode then.
questions, yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
That's funny. Well, good, man. All right, give us a shameless plug, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram at Unbound Archery, Facebook Unbound Archery, and unboundarchery.com.
Nice. And why should people use your strings?
Because we make some of the best strings in the world.
See, you said it wrong. It's because you make the best strings in the world. That's
Hey,
what you were supposed to say.
there's plenty of companies, that make a really good product, and got to give credit where credit's due. And I don't
That's
want
true.
to, make the claim of making the best in the world. But hey, I think I'm biased. I think we make a really good string.
Awesome, man. Well, it was a good episode. I appreciate you coming on. Everybody go check out Unbound. And yeah, man, we'll get you back on. I definitely am gonna try and convince the wife a little bit more tonight to be like, hey, listen, we really need to get you under a bow. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
You know,
you
it's
have
it's
to.
fun. Because so I know we're wrapping it up, but real quick, the crazy thing is she actually used to shoot archery when she was a kid, and then she got out of it. And I'm like, dude, if you already shot it, granted, it wasn't the same thing what you got now. You know, it's a little
Right.
stick and string back then, but you understand it. It's the same
Yep.
concept.
Yep.
And I'm
The
like, there's no
fundamentals.
better feeling than shooting an arrow at 40 yards and seeing it go exactly where you were aiming at. It's even better when there's an animal behind it, but she doesn't
Yeah.
want to do that. So,
Yep. Well,
but
hey, just even the target practice in 3D will be a blast.
yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
we have a
man,
theater
thanks.
out front, so we
Yep.
could do it, but
Yep, for sure. Get into it. But yeah, man, I
I'll try.
appreciate you having me on, and we got to do it again sometime.
Yeah, we'll set it up. Don't worry.
All right. Appreciate you.